Tulsi Gabbard. She is just doing a great job. And, well, let's break down this new evidence. She unveiled this document. Pretty exhaustive.
On Friday afternoon, kind of late, the Director of National Intelligence put out a release, a memo, and a bunch of documents that they've declassified, as well as she went on Fox News' Sean Hannity to talk about this. But here's the headline of the press release: New evidence of Obama administration conspiracy to subvert President Trump's 2016 victory and presidency. And it goes on to talk about, and this is on the heels of us talking about the FBI looking into a grand conspiracy scheme that they are looking into with Brennan and Comey and others. And we're finding out now that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, has referred this new evidence to the DOJ. And I want to read this quote from Tulsi Gabbard. We have sound from her later, but this is in the press release they put out. Okay. It says, the issue I'm raising is not a partisan issue. It is one that concerns every American. The information we are releasing today clearly shows there was a treasonous conspiracy.
That's a big word.
In 2016, committed by officials at the highest levels of our government. Their goal was to subvert the will of the American people and enact was essentially a years-long coup with the objective of trying to usurp the president from fulfilling the mandate bestowed upon him by the American people.
The implications of this are, frankly, nothing short of historic. Over 100 documents that we released on Friday really detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama just weeks before he was due to leave office, after President Trump had already gotten elected. This is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue that is so serious it should concern every single American because it has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. What we saw occur here, as the documents we released detailed, was that we had a sitting president of the United States and his cabinet and leadership team, quite frankly, who were not happy with the fact that President Trump had won the election, that the American people had chosen Donald J. Trump to be the next president, commander-in-chief of the United States. And so they decided that they would do everything possible to try to undermine his ability to do what voters tasked President Trump to do.
Will, kind of laying out this pretty big claim. Like, you can't just make this claim. If so, we've had some issues with the FBI and with some of the other departments where they've thrown around things over the last few weeks. And a lot of times where they've said, there's no smoke, nothing's happening here. Tulsi comes out and says, look, we got evidence, over 100 documents released. The detail and provide evidence of how this treasonous conspiracy was directed by President Obama, not even by President Obama's team, not even the Obama administration. Again, these are her words. The Director of National Intelligence words, not ours.
That's right. And once again, like, all of us that lived through that knew that there was something nefarious had happened, the weaponization of government. But now you're hearing from the current Director of National Intelligence using words like treasonous conspiracy. That's a very strong phraseology. Something, I mean, we stay away from even like normally implicating treason because of what a high bar that is when we talk about the weaponization of government. Yeah. There could be other crimes committed, but like treason is one that you almost stay away from because of how rarely it's invoked. I believe I looked up, it's only been charged against someone less than 40 times in our history. They have obviously secured convictions in some of those, a lot fewer than 40, but you think of even back to Benedict Arnold, which is the original kind of treason against America, which happened during the Revolutionary War. But what we're seeing here and the way she's laid this out is that she's talking about not just the politicization of intelligence. She's calling it the manufacturing of intelligence. And she says there's more coming this week. This was just the first tranche that they're releasing declassified. Obviously, there's a declassification process. But she really, in this first memo and this first tranche of emails and documents that have been released, we're seeing that the intelligence community, the entire election cycle, was in lockstep. That, one, Russia didn't have the ability to actually hack our system and change votes and manipulate vote tallies and change an election that way, as well as the consensus was, while their online activity was meant to sow kind of confusion in the United States, make the United States look weaker. They didn't have a favored candidate. Where that all changed was after President Trump was elected. And we remember things like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page talking about the insurance policy.
Talking about it again.
What happened? The President of the United States called a principals committee meeting on December 9th of 2016.
That's in these documents.
In these documents.
Yeah,
I'm looking at a document right now that is a summary of the conclusions for the principals committee meeting on the sensitive topic. They didn't even name it in their headline.
And then there were some emails that came out.
Right, we'll get to that as well.
And some of my favorite ones, which are ones that have come out recently, that are like, if they're going to go down this path.
Here are the people, though, that were in this principals meeting. Mm-hmm. Susan Rice.
Heard of her?
Interestingly, there was no representative present from the office of the vice president. That would have been Joe Biden's office for this meeting.
So maybe there was a little bit of intelligence there. Let's keep him out of that.
We had John Kerry, Victoria Nuland. We had someone from the Department of Defense, Brian McKeon. We had the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch. We had the Department of Homeland Security, Jay Johnson. Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough. DNI, James Clapper. FBI, Andrew McCabe, CIA, John Brennan, as well as Avril Haines, who was the Director of National Intelligence under President Joe Biden.
Traveling Wilburys.
Lisa Monaco and Ben Rhodes. All of these people were in this meeting. And what Tulsi Gabbard is telling us is that is where it changed, where they said, no, we now need it to be that Russia chose Donald Trump to win and affected the election. There was this collusion narrative. And what did they use? Something that hadn't been used in all the intelligence products thus far because it wasn't credible, the Steele dossier. And that's directed by the President of the United States to effectively get to this outcome so we can undermine Trump.
I actually want to hear more from Tulsi Gabbard. We're going to buy at 11 because I think this is important to hear as much from her as possible. Because you're hearing our commentary, that's great. But this is coming from, again, not just our former colleague. It is coming from the current sitting Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
This document was then used as the foundation for everything that came next. It was essentially a years-long coup that was launched against President Trump before he even had the opportunity to take his oath of office and be sworn in as President of the United States. So, as you know, there was a Mueller investigation that went on for years, cost taxpayers nearly $40 million. There were 2 congressional impeachments. President Trump and almost every member of his family were smeared and attacked, faced lawsuits, depositions. High-level officials were investigated. Some were arrested and put in jail. The list goes on and on about the ramifications of this, but foundational to it all was the fact that we had in President Obama and his leadership team, people who did not want to accept the will of the American people in electing Donald Trump in 2016, and therefore cooked up this treasonous conspiracy to, again, try to effectively, and they did effectively, launch a years-long coup against the sitting President of the United States.
Look, I think there's even things that I personally would have laughed off even as conspiracy theories just a few years ago, that now when these sort of documents come out, you go, they were probably right.
Well, in reality, that's why even the term treasonous conspiracy is shocking to hear coming from the Director of National Intelligence. Now, there's a high bar to convict someone of treason, but that's in the Constitution. There's no statute of limitations. So when they've talked about this grand conspiracy, treasonous conspiracy is the term that Tulsi is choosing. I think there's a lot in that when it comes to that's outside the statute of limitations. If they can prove that this was treasonous to undermine the government of the United States and the next president of the United States, I think that there's something to be looked at there. But that's a high bar. And now that this is out there, the DOJ, if they bring a case, have got to prove that in court. It's going to get very interesting. As she says, there is more information to come, as well as whistleblowers that are now coming forward now that they've released this, including, Logan, something you referenced earlier that Just the News pointed out, where there was a member of the National Intelligence Council.
You got it. Look, I would even encourage you when you're done here, go read their article because it is alarming, but also fascinating. So the National Intelligence Council is an organization under the Director of National Intelligence
that bridges the gap between all the intelligence agencies and kind of can compile evidence and put together reports of intelligence outlooks. They were looking into the election claims. They were part of that team that was producing the reports leading up, and that changed after the election, after that principals meeting with President Obama, where they had a new directive. And this is an email that was released by Tulsi Gabbard and that Justin News picked up on from someone who was on that National Intelligence Council that went ahead and was looking at this and got an email from another colleague that referenced the Steele dossier. And this was his response regarding the email below. I'm choosing my words carefully for your awareness because the premise of the message is concerning. As you know, I was a deputy on the NIO cyber team, also the de facto elections team from 2015 through this year. I have intermittently participated in the IC foreign influence and election security efforts from 2014 through this evening. I was asked by NIO Cyber Redacted to participate in the analytical scrub of non-compartmented version of what the 2017 ICA reference below. It included no dossier reference that I can recall. He goes on to say that I will cut to the chase, saving detail for in-person if you think needed. You do have at least one National Intelligence Council person who has been here through the whole period and worked on the paper. Me. If dossier material was used by the National Intelligence Council, unless it also was compartmented, my NIO intentionally deceived and excluded me from things I was cleared for and had need to know throughout his entire tenure here. I prefer to think that isn't true, but if it was, we have a problem.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Seculo program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.